Well, good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to our Ziegenfuss. Today I'm talking about Christopher Columbus. Why is that? Well, Columbus Day was last Monday, and we didn't have Ziegenfuss, and I would have done it that day, but instead I moved it to today. And so it's a fascinating subject, and I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with religion? Well, everything. Yeah, everything. So as I peel on here, you'll see how this works. All right, now, what was his name? Christopher Columbus. Was that his name? No, that's an Americanization or anglicized name. He was born in Genoa, and he didn't speak Italian. Remember, Italy's united in 1871, so it's the Republic of Genoa, and he spoke with an accent from Genoa. Then he spoke Portuguese and Spanish, and he read Latin, and he would write like cryptic little notes using Koine Greek letters. So he was multilingual. And what are his dates? I always like to look at the date. We might as well get the first one out of the way. What happened in 1492?
He sailed the ocean blue.
Even my idiot college students know this. It's an amazing thing. All right, we'll get to 1492 in a little while. So 1492 is the peg that you want to plug in. Now wait a minute, what's the date now? 2024. So do the math, what is it, like 500 years ago? Is that hard for us to understand? Yes, ready? How old's our country? 230 years old. So it's like double the age of our country. When did the Pilgrims land on Plymouth Rock? 1620. Isn't that odd? Well, the Spanish had about a 100-year head start in the New World before the English got involved in the New World. That's why they came to New England instead of taking. Where's the prime territory in the New World? Where? No. Are you kidding? Who wants to go there? You're crazy to go there. Yeah, the Caribbean and Central America, like Yucatan Peninsula. That's prime territory. New England is like nobody in the right mind would land like the Pilgrims did in November without, half of them died the first year, 102, 50 of them died, so New England is like the leftover stuff. Nobody in the right mind would want to move there. So the prime territory is the Caribbean. Later on in history, what's the main crop in the Caribbean? Sugar. Do we like sugar? Yeah, sugar. They had sugar from the Arab world, and they couldn't really get it. So when Europeans got sugar it was like the crack cocaine of this time. And sugar is what? Labor intensive, isn't it? Labor intensive. And can you get like people from Spain or Portugal to come over here and to raise sugarcane? The answer would be no. So what do you do to get the work done? Slavery. Okay? So the whole slave world is related to getting sugarcane, the Caribbean. They're obsessed with it, okay? So, all right, we're getting ahead of the story, but so let's talk about Columbus here. So, 1492, that's the key date. He dies in 1506. So isn't that interesting? He's here in 1492, and he dies in 1506. So he wasn't really around very often to enjoy the fruits of his discovery. And I like this painting of Christopher Columbus. First of all, is this what Christopher Columbus looked like? There are no contemporary images of Christopher Columbus. And I think that's rather fascinating. Is he famous today? He's famous and infamous today. And you would think that there would be a picture of Christopher Columbus. There isn't. 50 years later, people that remembered what he looked like did paintings, and then you sort of go from there. Here we have a young Christopher Columbus, and I love this. He's sitting on a rock somewhere in the old world, Portugal or something, looking out to the sea, and he's looking where? Toward the west, to the new world. And he's got his charts in front of him, okay? Well, let me see here. How come it's not working? Oh, come on. We'll just look at this slide all day.
It was working.
I know. What is it? It's locked up. Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, so here's a contemporary image of Columbus. I kind of like this one. You know, it's kind of a cartoonish look. And here he is with his hand on the globe. And so he's a navigator. All right, now, let's talk about Columbus. When Columbus Day comes around, you know, I said to people, the Masons, hey, I'm going to talk about Columbus Day. Oh, you mean Indigenous Peoples Day? Okay? Well, first of all, shut up, right? Do I like indigenous people? Yes, I like Native Americans, and I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma. Oklahoma have the 5 civilized tribes. There are 39 recognized tribes in Oklahoma plus, right? Everybody who's from Oklahoma, if you're really from Oklahoma, you're, you know, part Cherokee or something. Now, what do you call Indians? What do you call them? The Cleveland Guardians. No, is that what you call them? No, what do you call them?
Native American?
No. Here's what you do. What do you want to be called?
Oh, you call them by their tribe.
Yeah, you would say to them, well, you know what, I'm from Minnesota, born in Minnesota, live in New York, you know, and so what you say to them, well, what do you know, and they're not going to say, I'm an Indian or I'm a Native American or an indigenous person. They're going to say, I'm a member of X tribe. I'm a Choctaw. I'm an Osage Indian. I'm a Cherokee, right? They identify with their tribe, not indigenous people, or, you know, and who calls them indigenous people? Well, people that are in the sociology department that have too much time on their hands, right? They're trying to come up with a term that's not offensive, you know, like, oh yeah, let's change the name of the Cleveland Guardians to the, from the Indians to the Guardian. That'll undo all the damage that we did. Just, you know, annihilate the memory that we had, there ever were Indians here. That's a great way to honor them, right? So, and the numbers are grossly inflated, okay? What do you mean? They'll claim Columbus, because of Columbus, there's a genocide that killed 70 to 100 million people. Now, what do you say to something like that? Oh yeah? Did you do a census in 1491 and count how many Native Americans were in North and South America before Columbus arrived? No, you didn't. So it's based on estimations. And the estimates are wild, they're all over the place. What do we know? All right, ready? How many people live in Manhattan per square mile? A lot. You know, I don't know, 100,000 people per square mile or something, some outrageous number. How is that possible? It's only possible because they grow the corn in Illinois, and the dairy comes from Vermont, the water comes from the Ashokan Reservoir. Everything is brought in to make it possible to live in one place in a city. A city is really a miraculous thing when you think about it. How did people live in the Native American days, 1491, let's say, right? Sorry, yeah, 1491, before Columbus arrived. Here's how they lived. How many people does it take living as a hunter-gatherer? So in anthropology, they're called hunter-gatherer people. How many people does it take? It takes a family, clan, and tribe. What is that? Basic sociological unit of most human. If you want to read the Bible, you want to understand, family, clan, tribe. 50 people it takes. 25 people, actually, 25 people. It takes 100 square miles of land to support 25 people. Well, what does that mean? How many calories do you need a day to live?
2,000.
Well, do 2,000. That's a good number. Suppose you're living outdoors in January in upstate New York. Oh, probably 5,000 calories, right, to keep warm, right? Okay, how are you going to get 5,000 calories?
Fat.
Okay, where?
Dead animals.
Okay, so you have to do hunting, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do we have a lot of hunters here? Yeah, we do. Yeah, Pastor Roy, he's a big hunter. He goes hunting every year. I don't think he's ever gotten a deer in the history of the time I've known him. Right? And he's got like a rifle, all kinds of technology, you know, drones to find the deer. If I depend on him for the meat, you know, well, so imagine trying to live on a fish from the river or berries that you pick or taking down a deer or a squirrel once in a while. That's a lot of effort, very difficult to do. Even if you're a skilled hunter, it would be hard to do. You don't have firearms, you know.
And time consuming.
Time consuming. You
That
spend all your
takes you
time out
away from doing
foraging
something
and working.
else.
Yeah, it's very difficult. We just go to the deli and order a sandwich and we're fine. So it's amazing, right? So as a result, the population is relatively low. If you read the journals of Lewis and Clark, right? Fantastic. Read the journals of Jerusalem, and they run into Sacagawea and she, well, the Snake Indians, the Cheyenne Indians, the Mandan Indians that are living out in the Great Plains, they're starving to death. They're following around Lewis and Clark trying to get food and food from them. They're starving because it's very difficult to live off the land. And what does that mean? The population is relatively low, okay? Relatively low. So you keep that in mind. So these numbers are, why would someone say that Columbus killed 100 million people? It's called propaganda, right? So what do you need to know? You need to know like some kind of a realistic number of what it might have been before you start throwing around numbers, right? I love this one. The American Holocaust, 100 million Native Americans killed. Is that true? I'd say it's inflated a lot. And we'll never actually know the real number. It's very difficult, to try to, archaeology, I'll do a lecture on that another time. It's very difficult to find a couple bones and then estimate the population of, say, this area, the Sapasco Indian Trail, very, very difficult. Rethink Columbus Day. So you're supposed to feel guilty about commemorating Christopher Columbus on October 12th. Okay, they want to get rid of the day. Here, no more genocide, abolish Columbus Day. So why are we talking about Columbus Day? Because I think he's gotten a really bad rap and we need to know about him. Now stop. When you read history, do you have to like the people that you read about?
No.
No. Just because we talk about World War II and Hitler doesn't mean I like Hitler. Okay? So you don't have to like the person. Is that a good thing? When you read a comic book, there are good guys and bad guys. Well, history doesn't work that way. You don't have to like anybody, but you have to know who they are. That's liberating, actually. And of course, a lot of problems in high school and in college when they teach history, they put people black hats and white hats. And Columbus is definitely, he's an evil person, and so he should be annihilated, take him out of all the textbooks and never talk about him or mention his name. That's ridiculous. Why? I would say, he's the most important person in Western civilization, outside of Jesus. That's how important he is, okay? And we'll see why in a little bit. So I like Tony Soprano's method. He was a brave Italian explorer, and in this house, Christopher Columbus is a hero. That's the end of the story. Yeah, the tone's up to something here, right? Now, what is this called? Presentism. Again, when you read the Bible or history in general, you have to avoid presentism or nowism. What does that mean? There's a lot of this going around these days. So you say, we're morally superior, we live in 2024. And you look back at history and you say, Christopher Columbus is a genocidal degenerate. We don't like Martin Luther, Reformation Sunday, come to church next week, because he wrote a couple of nasty pamphlets toward the end of his life. He's an anti-Semite, therefore he should be annihilated from history. Okay? So you don't use the standards of today, which you think are morally superior, to judge people in the past. Well, how do you judge the people? Well, in context. You say, who was Columbus? Who was Martin Luther? Who are these people? Right? Where do they come from? What baggage do they have? Right? So you want to know, how did people live 500 years ago? What's the context of it? See how that works? So this is called presentism, and this is something you really want to avoid. If you talk to most people today, do they know anything about history? Why? Because they're living in the moment. Live in the moment. And why is that a problem? You have to know history. I view history as sitting around in a room full of old guys that are talking about their life experience. And if the old guys wrote it down, that's even better. Because you can read the historical documents ad fontes back to the fountainhead, and you can say, yeah, what was it like to be on Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944? What was that like? You were only 18 or 19 years old. What was that like? So, in other words, we have to avoid present. And what's the purpose of reading history? It gives you maturity. Is that a good thing? Right? People who live in the present are like kindergarten children wandering around. Like they're born yesterday. They have no knowledge of the past. They don't care about the future. That's a disaster. And of course, if you're a Bible reader, is that a problem? Well, the Bible is forget God for a minute. The Bible's a history book. And you have to be able to put things in context and go, yeah, I'm going to learn from the mistakes of Abraham, or I'm going to learn from David's mistakes. That's why you read the Bible. So presentism is a real problem. Columbus is a victim of presentism. Okay? Would we condone a person who gets on a ship in Spain and comes over the Caribbean and starts, killing and torturing people? No, we wouldn't approve of that today. But we're 500 years later. You see? So you have to put things in their context. And now, Columbus is a horrible human. The truth is, we're mixed. We're both good and evil at the same time. And you want to become a Christian to learn to subdue your passions, right? To be a good citizen, love God, love your neighbor. What's this? The first murder in the Bible, Cain kills Abel. Have things changed radically? No, that's why the Bible is true even for 2024. Things haven't changed at all, okay? Certain things happen. What's this? If you read the Bible, I read the Bible, Joshua's conquest of Canaan, right? So the promised land is where the Canaanites lived, and these people are polytheistic pagans who practice child sacrifice and were warned by God for over 700 years to repent. They didn't repent, and God used the Hebrews as the sword of the Lord to go in and clean house and take over the promised land. Okay? So it's a conquest theory, isn't it? Okay? What's this? Human beings have been on the move all the time. The whole time we've lived, we've been on the move. Right? And so these are the out of Africa theory, right? We came out of Africa, so if you find Africa on the map, we came out of Africa and spread across Southeast Asia, Aborigines in Australia, up into Europe, this way, right? Beringia, I'll talk about that in a minute, and spread down this way. So in other words, human beings have always been on the move. Hunter-gatherers, what do? Hunter-gatherers start herding flocks, and they become pastoral people, because it's easier to go and kill the sheep or the lamb in your backyard that you've been raising than it is to go out and try to kill a wild sheep. See how that works? So human beings we always think that if we go somewhere else, our life will be better. The grass is always greener on the other side. We always want to go somewhere, right? Again, I love Kansas. It's a place where you reinvent yourself 3 or 4 times. You got to Kansas, nobody cares where you're from. Well, they're worried if you're from California and New York because they might, vote and ruin the state. But other than that, they're pretty friendly people. So you reinvent yourself by moving to another location. So there's something in our DNA with this idea of wandering, right? All right. So here, this just shows this is Alexander the Great and his conquests. This is like 330 BC. Alexander the Great conquers the known world. I'll talk about him another day. And what's this? The Roman Empire. Remember, when you study history, the Bible, right, classical history, the Roman Empire is your anchor point. So 553 BC, founding of Rome, and this is 117 AD when Hadrian was the emperor. And where's my map? I moved it. This is the extent of the Roman Empire: 28 legions, 58,000 miles of roads. The Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, so that's really important. Oh, come on. I'm just going to go to I don't know why it gets sticky
I think
like
it's
this.
losing the connection every now and then.
Okay. And who are these? These are the Huns. Where did they come from? They came from the steppe of Central Asia, and they invaded and they destroyed the Roman Empire. Right, here they are. Oh no, what did I do? I just shut it off.
That looks like a Hun to me.
This is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's library. Please stand by. Smoke if you got them.
How about just the back button to get back to where you were?
This is why I have Linda running the music box. What back button? I think I have to reload it. It shut off. here, let me.
All right.
Well, it was good so far. I guess we'll just have to go home.
What about this one?
Yeah, what is that?
That's your internet.
Well, it shouldn't be on the internet. Like it's dead. I don't know what. Oh, hold on. Oh, no.
Restore.
It's probably doing some kind of an upload.
No, it's losing the connection.
We don't have a connection. There shouldn't be one.
Well, then why is the little
I
thing
don't know.
spinning around?
Sorry about this. When I used to teach at the CIA, I just plugged my thumb drive in and started talking. It was an amazing thing.
It's slow. It's slow. Pull. You see, it's spinning.
Yeah, you see this.
So it's trying to connect to something.
It's melding.
There
with
you
his
go. You
mind.
see, it's happening.
Patience is a virtue.
It's
Yes.
happening.
Are you familiar with the word defenestration? It's a word from high technology. It means throw it out the window.
No.
That's what you open the window and defenestrate the laptop.
That's a very old
I bet I
word.
can spin it.
I don't think they do that anymore.
It's a very old laptop.
They just
Yeah. I've tried to talk him into getting a new one, Val.
No, I don't need a new one.
Just hide this one.
Yeah. Buy it online.
Yeah, buy it online.
Opening. Yeah. It's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's grinding away. It's probably making backup copies in the
What do you
cloud
want,
or
Windows
something.
98 on this thing?
I don't know what it is.
Oh my lord. We'll humiliate him with it. He'll get me.
Maybe he'll listen to you, Val.
I'll just hold the thumb drive up like this and say, okay, here's the next slide. It's better if I could show you the pictures on this stuff.
But we believe you anyway.
Yeah, don't believe me. It's better to look at the pictures. Oh, come on.
Processing. Something's happening.
Something's happening.
There you go. Now just give it a minute. Give it a minute. Give it a minute.
Document recovery. I don't want to recover the
But
document.
just
Yeah.
move down, scroll it down and choose the picture you were on. Scroll it down.
Scroll down. No. No, it's killing us under.
No, it'll pull that one up, but I'll just speed by it. Okay.
Makes you nervous, doesn't it?
Okay, the Roman Empire, the Huns. All right, these are the barbarian invasions of the old Roman Empire. So what's the point here? Family, clan, tribes are always on the move, always conquering other territories, right? What's this? This is British or English history. Okay, the Britons, right? The Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons, the Phrygians invaded Anglo-Saxon, right? So England itself is a product of other countries invading them. Spain is also. And of course the Vikings, we like the Vikings, right? The Scandinavians, they settled all over the place. They founded a city called Kiev. Yeah, Kiev. Yeah, that's a Viking settlement. And they founded Dublin, England, or Dublin, Ireland. That's a Viking settlement. And they made it to Iceland, of course, and Greenland. This is the spread of Islam, okay? I'll do a whole talk on Islam sometime. 570 to 632 AD, Muhammad dies at 632. By 732, they're in the middle of modern-day France. It's called the Battle of Tours. Right here, up here, right there. So they went from Mecca all the way here, across the Iberian Peninsula, 711, made it up to Tours right here. It took them 100 years. So Islam's on the move. Everybody's on the move all the time. Got that point? Okay. Here it is, the conquest of Spain. 711 AD, Okay, I got in big trouble because it's a good joke. How do you remember 7-Eleven? That's who works at the 7-Eleven. That's how you remember that. Okay, so 7-Eleven is not good. 7-Eleven, you'll never forget it though. You will never forget that.
You're getting the finger.
I know. If my mother was here, she'd be doing the same thing. Oh, Mark. No, but that's how you remember. In 7-Eleven, they crossed they entered the Iberian Peninsula and they conquered all this territory. And remember, in Islam, once a territory is Islamic, what is it? It's forever Islamic.
Yeah.
So, do the Jews have a problem in Israel? Yeah, because the armies of Islam conquered it in 638 AD, right? And they conquered the Iberian Peninsula in 711 AD. So from the Islamic point of view, Spain and Portugal are actually Islamic territory that needs to be liberated again. You know, you have to, like, if you know this stuff, it won't be shocking when you read the newspaper. And this is the reconquest of Spain. Now, how old is our country again? 230 years old. Spain's reconquest started in 711 and ended in 1492. 785 years of fighting. Why is it that the Protestant Reformation never caught on in Spain? Well, because 1517 is only a few years after 1492, and they spent 785 years fighting to get the Islamic Moors out of their country. It's astonishing, you know? And so Spanish Catholicism is like heavy duty, right? It's not a liberal or a moderate form, it's the real deal, like heavy duty Catholicism. And that's going to have an impact on the New World, won't it? Yes, it will. And here these are Mongols invading. Okay, so the Mongols have a history of invading also. And the Ottoman Turks. The Ottoman Turks take Constantinople in 1453. We'll review this in a minute. Don't go away. Here's the Ottoman Empire. And what's the date of that? 1453 to when? 566. 1566. So the Ottoman Turks controlled all that territory. When the Roman Empire fell, it broke three ways. Latin, west, Greek, east, and the south is Islamic. So it broke three ways. So the Ottoman Turks, and what's interesting about the Ottoman Turks, this map is very helpful. Where does Christopher Columbus, where is he from? Genoa, right here, up here, Genoa. And he sails for Spain, trying to get the Portuguese to back him, here. And where did he want to go again? West, to go where? Well, that's kind of stupid, isn't it? Why would you want to go west to get to India? India's like right here. Just go here and get out the Silk Road, goes out to China. And India's down here, all the spices. You can't get there because it's controlled by the Ottoman Turks. Right? So you can't go that way. So do you want spices and all? Okay, Western people have a thing. We love China. We think that every good thing you could possibly want is in China. We always want to get to China, buy stuff from China, trade with China. It goes way, way, way back, right? And normally we get it out of the Silk Road, but the Silk Road is cut off because of Constantinople, right here, Byzantium. That's a choke point right there. So was Genoa a rich trading republic? Yeah, they made a lot of money. What did they do? They had ships. They would go from Genoa, around here, go through Constantinople into the Black Sea. Here's Crimean Peninsula and the Silk Road. So they imported silk and spice. All the goodies from the Silk Road come through Genoa and Florence and Milan, right? Over the Alps, and they make a lot of money that way. So if you can't go there anymore, what are you going to do? You can be poor and you can starve, or you can say, let's find another way to go that we can get around the Ottoman Turks. Okay? That's what they're up to. Here, this is the Ottoman Turks. They had the whole Middle East locked up. What happened to the Ottoman Turks? Are you familiar with the First World War? It's 1914 to 1918. They lost, okay, because they sided with the Central Powers. In 1922, they broke up the Ottoman Empire. Who used to run the Middle East for 500 years? The Ottoman Turks. Are the Turks Arabs? Now they hate the Arabs. What did they do to the Palestinians, the Arabs? They tortured them and enslaved them and did every possible thing. They kept them under their boot 500 years. Yeah, but don't the Palestinians have a bad deal now? The Jews are enlightened compared to what the Ottoman Turks were like, right? So they, you know, what, you want to have peace in the Middle East? Give it all back to the Ottoman Turks. They'll restore law and order, right? Yeah. So they got the Turks out of there, and then that opened up all these. Every Arab tribe got their own little country now, and so they're all fighting each other. But when the Ottoman Turks were there, they kept the peace. Okay. Now what's this? This is our Native American friends. Where did they come from? They came from 25,000 years ago. The sea levels were 200 feet lower than they are now, because the water is locked up in the ice sheet. So if you're sitting right here, right, you look up and what are you going to see? 3,000 feet of ice. And where is the terminal moraine? The edge of the ice sheet? Long Island. You ever go to Long Island? I've been there. What do they have in Long Island? Like these round rocks and a bunch of gravel, right? Well, that's the stuff that was scraped from Canada and New England and dumped there, and the ice sheet retreated and went up this way. So our land is all scarred by the ice sheet, right? Palisades. They found a woolly mammoth or Columbian mammoth in Hyde Park about 15 years ago, fully intact. Yeah, because the woolly mammoths and Columbian mammoths are on the edge of the ice sheet as it retreats. The Finger Lakes region. Okay, so when the ice sheet was at its max, you could walk from Asia across into Alaska and down. So we think that's where Native Americans came from. And there's different theories, 40,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago. So pick a date. It's something back in BC, and they came down this ice-free corridor, and then you find Clovis and Folsom projectile points, arrowheads, projectile points. Again, so this is where the Native Americans came from. Notice, are they the indigenous people? Not really. There wasn't anybody here before they arrived. So if you want to turn back the clock, we should actually depopulate North and South America to make it all natural again. You see how that works? Human beings are always on the move. And these are this is a 1491 map. And these are estimates. Okay? Indians don't have nation states, so they don't have boundaries like we do, you know, build a wall, they don't have that. So you have different tribes, family, clans, and tribes. How many tribes are there? Nobody knows? They think there are 500 Indian nations. That's a good rule of thumb. 500 nations. So let me ask you the question. When the Pilgrims landed on the beach in Cape Cod, why didn't the Indians just kill them all right then and there? They didn't do it because the Indian tribes themselves were at war with each other. Right? The Wampanoag Indians wanted the Pilgrims to be on their side to go kill their hated Narragansett neighbors. Okay? Where do we live? Rhinebeck. Okay? What tribes are around here? Lenni Lenape Indians. Yeah, they're called Delaware people, but they're Lenni Lenape is their tribe. From here all the way down into like South Jersey, Lenni Lenape territory. Okay, and when you go like out there on the other side of the Catskills, who's out there? Out by the Finger Lakes region, the Iroquois people. Okay, who are they? Really nasty. Yeah, you do not want to be taken captive by the Iroquois. Do not. They turn you over to the women, and the women do exquisite tortures. You don't want to know what they do to you, right? And who do the Iroquois people hate? The Algonquin Indians. That's the Lenni Lenape people and the tribes that are in New England, and so they're at war for how long? How long are they at war for? Oh, I don't know, 1,000 years. They're a different family, clan, and tribe. They have a different language group. The Iroquois people are grouped with the Cherokee. They think it's some kind of a branch of that. So they fight the Algonquin Indians that are here. They're arch enemies. They hate each other. If the Indians would have gotten all together and had a unified army, you know, the Indian nation or something, they could have turned back the whites with no problem at all. You see how that works? Okay. So they're family clans or tribes. And these are some of the different tribal groupings. Again, there's 500 nations. That's a good rule of thumb. I was born in Minnesota, and that's where the Ojibwe people, the Chippewa Indians, are from. And who did they hate? The Lakota people. And who are they? If you say to them, who are those people over there? They're the Sioux Indians. What does Sioux mean? Sioux means snake. That's not a compliment. So the Sioux Indians, the Lakotans, were at war with the Ojibwe Indians before the whites ever arrived. They're always at war with each other. Okay? Is that something that we had in Europe? Yeah, they're always fighting in Europe too. People are always fighting. It's the family clan tribe are always fighting each other. Okay? What's this? This is DNA. If you say to a Native American, hey, what are you? I'm a Cherokee. Okay, well, where did you come from? We came from the soil. We came from the land. That's their creation myth. If you say to them, yeah, but didn't you cross over Beringia, 25,000 years ago when the ice sheet was, they will say, what are you talking about? Right? So, but if you do the DNA, guess what? The DNA is the Native Americans are from modern day Siberia. And they crossed over Beringia, and this is the DNA dispersion. So the DNA seems to have that. Now, does that mean they can't have their legends? That's great to have a creation myth, right? And again, this is in the 1600s. Again, you see the Iroquois people here? This is Finger Lakes region, right? So these are the 5 or 6 tribes of the Iroquois Confederacy. Now, what do they do now?
Oh, no.
Please don't go to Facebook.
Dear, yeah, get rid of it.
Oh, there's.
There!
I'm afraid to advance the slide.
There's something on the remote that you.
Yeah.
I won't use this anymore.
He's
Something
doing
on
something.
there that's calling another application.
Defenestration of the remote.
No.
Okay, I'll just use the thing on here.
You need an AV kid.
Yeah, I know, it's true. See, if I was trying to do the music box during the church service, it would be this during church on Sunday. You don't want that. All right, so these are, again, tribes, okay, more tribes, right? Again, I get a kick out, I'm watching the news. Oh, it's Indigenous Peoples Day in New York. They have drumming session and everything, and they have these people walking around, and they have a teepee set up. Well, the Indians in New York did not live in teepees. That's Plains Indians, and they didn't wear war bonnets, right? So Indians, there's 500 nations of Indians. So you have to respect their tradition. You don't have like, so anyway, so these are some of the different traditional outfits, all right? To get a good idea, what was the world like before 1491 when Columbus got here and ruined it all? Watch Mel Gibson's movie Apocalypto, right? Yeah, it's pretty disturbing, right? Human sacrifice, slavery, cannibalism, all kinds of nasty stuff going on. There are no Europeans in it until the very end, where you see the ships appear off the shore. And this is nasty stuff. And are these Native Americans? Are they get rid of the golden age myth that before Columbus got here, they were caring and sharing. They had sweat lodges, and they were drumming circles, and they were hugging each other all the time. Nah, not so, right? The Indians are like really tough, right? They like the Iroquois people. They would like run through the woods barefoot, like 25 miles. They were in peak condition, and they were fierce warriors, really tough. Yeah, but don't you just shoot them down with a musket? Not really. While you're reloading, they're going to beat your head in with a war club. So they were pretty much equally matched, believe it or not, right? They're fierce warriors, right? Here's Christopher Columbus. Again, is this what he looked like? Not really. We don't know what he looked like. Is he a great man? I would argue yes. 1492 is a paradigm shift in Western civilization. There's a before Columbus and an after Columbus. The Columbian Exchange, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, don't go away. His name means Christ bearer, okay? Is there anything to do with religion? Yeah. Christopher Columbus is a deeply religious man. How deeply religious is the guy? We would say he's a fanatic, right? When he came back from his fourth voyage, he became a lay Franciscan, so he wore the Franciscan habit. And he did the hours, he prayed the hours every day. He read the Bible, especially the book of Revelation. He thought he was God's instrument to bring about the second coming of Christ by discovering a new land or a new world. And what was his goal? He wanted to get to China, China, and he wanted to get rich and then use the money to launch another crusade. Remember, we were kicked out of the Middle East in 1285? He wanted to retake the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem and make it Christian again. So he's trying to fund a new crusade. What would we say to somebody like that? You're a lunatic, right? He's extremely, extremely religious, right? And remember, I talked about Roman Catholicism in Spain is like hard-boiled, right? Of all the Christian groups that would appear in the New World, Spain was probably, a worst-case scenario, right? And why were they so tough? Because they were fighting the Islamic fanatics for 785 years, and it makes you tough. It makes you a hardened person. So his name means Christ bearer. That's his name. He's bearing Christ to the world. He's an expert navigator, right? We forget this. He isn't just like, oh, I'm getting a boat. It's like, I just get in a boat. I'm stupid. I'll get in a boat. No, he's making an educated guess here when he thinks the world is about 3/5 smaller than it actually is. So instead of the globe this size, it's this size. So if you sail 3,000 miles from Portugal or Spain and you go due west, you're going to bump into the outer islands of China, right? And when he got here, what did he call the people? Indians. Why? He thought that he was in India. To the day he died in 1506, he thought he discovered the outer islands of China, the Indians, right? That's what he thought, right? Very interesting. He's the first to do this, right? So we say Columbus discovered America. Oh, he did not. The Indians were here first. They didn't. No, Columbus discovered. Now, suppose we could go like this. Poof. We're going to make Columbus disappear because he hurt my feelings. What do you think would have happened? Oh, the Indians would have developed peacefully in the Golden Age, caring and sharing and drumming circles and peace pipes. And what would have happened? Somebody else who we don't know would have figured it out to sail over here, and they would have discovered the New World. It might have been in 1502 rather than 1492. So that works. So, but Columbus is the first one, and I'll talk about. He's a mariner. Okay, we forget this. He grew up, he's from Genoa. Genoa, you make your money sailing in the Mediterranean. He also traveled to Madeira. We think he might have gone to Iceland in around 1470. And there he heard Norse sagas about lands in the West. Oh, you mean China's out there? That's what he thought. So he's well informed. So he knows how to read like flocks of birds and changes in the sea water and things like that. So he's a skilled mariner, a navigator. He's a mystery man. We don't know a whole lot about him. Big news here this last Columbus Day. They figured out that Columbus might be a Sephardic Jew. That could be. They did DNA testing. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, Columbus is buried in 2 spots that we know of. So, you don't have, I think he's in Puerto Rico or Cuba or someplace, but also in Spain. So which body are you doing the DNA on, right? So is it true? Could be. I don't know. I mean, Jews, Sephardic Jews and Islamic people and Catholics lived together for 785 years. Who knows what happened? Okay, it could be. He's also a lobbyist. We forget this. He raised the money by going to court. Is that an easy thing to do? It's very difficult. You don't just show up and go, I want to talk to Queen Isabella for a few minutes. No, you have to make connections. It took years to get a hearing in front of her. Okay, and what is he doing? He's asking for money. Oh yeah, I just need a couple $2 billion here. Well, you'd have to be pretty good at lobbying in order to do that. And he's a leader. He has a single vision, right? A normal person would have said, I'm going to turn around and go back. Why is Abraham Lincoln a great man? Because he had a single vision. He's going to preserve the Union. A normal person would have quit after, before the Battle of Gettysburg. You would have said, that's it, let the South secede. No, Lincoln had a single vision, and he stuck with it till the end when everyone around him called him every name in the book. He's a baboon, he's an idiot, he's crazy. You know, who cares if the South is slavery? Who cares? Lincoln stuck, same thing with Christopher Columbus. He has a single vision. He's a navigator. He solves the problem of the Ottoman Turks in Constantinople. He's a cartographer. He's a master map reader. His brother was also a cartographer, a map maker, and they studied the maps and worked on the maps. Every time somebody sailed, you know, to Madeira or something, they would get the readings and they would put that data into the maps. It's all about the maps. He's self-educated. He's well-read, right? Elon Musk was talking today that he says a college education is overrated, that you don't have to have a college degree to work for his companies. And why is that? Well, you know, you can get what you need to know through learning a trade and experience and being well-read. Well, Christopher Columbus he couldn't afford to go to the university, right? The universities probably would have taught him all the wrong stuff anyway, like, you know, there's only 3 continents, there's no such thing, you know. So he would have learned that you can't do that, instead of thinking, I can do this. And he read history, and he read the Bible, theology. He's a profound Christian. What's his motives? I teach my dopey college kids this. The 4 Gs. I even ask them on a test, right? They're not in any particular order. He wants gold. Why do you want gold? Gold is good. The politicians can't print more of it, right? So there's a limited, so gold is good, right? So he wants gold. He wants to make a profit. Is making a profit an evil thing? Not really. Right? It's a profitable enterprise. He wants to get money to do what? Fund a crusade to retake the Holy Land. He wants glory. He's a commoner. He's not an aristocrat. So what did he want? He wanted from Queen Isabella and Ferdinand to have the title Admiral of the Ocean Seas. Please, just call me Admiral of the Ocean Sea. Right? And he wanted to have a coat of arms, and he wanted to be an aristocrat. And that stays in your family. In other words, he's going to make his name great. He's going to be an aristocrat, okay? And he's bringing the gospel. And it's not just Roman Catholic, it's hard-boiled militant Roman Catholicism he's bringing to the world. And why do you want that anyway? The world threat at the time is the Ottoman Turks and Islam. How do you beat somebody? You have more of them than they have. In other words, you have more people and more troops than the enemy has. That's how you win things. See? So he's trying to get more Catholics, in other words, to counterbalance the rise of Islam. Islam is the religion on the rise at this time. And geopolitics, again, the geopolitical problem is 1/3 of the old Roman Empire is locked up by the armies of Islam, and we can't get to China to get the good stuff. What's this? The Vikings. We have to talk about the Vikings, don't we? Every once in a while, next to, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. It is not. It's Leif Erikson Day. Okay? So hey, if you want to have Indigenous People Day, make it another day, like October 13th. Make that Indigenous Peoples Day, and Leif Erikson Day can be October 14th. You can honor everybody, right? So you don't have to like eliminate your idea to put my idea in its place. So these are the Vikings. Are they fairly remarkable individuals? Yeah, this is pretty good. The Viking longboats. These things, they're made of oak planks that are overlaid and tacked in, and when they go over the waves, they conform with the waves, and they're open. Yeah, I had a professor in Minnesota, and he said that he thinks that the problem with Vikings is they're Caucasian. In the Caucasus Mountains, they have a lot of lithium in the drinking water. But when you get away from the lithium supply, you do wacky stuff. You know, manic depression. So in the winter, you sit in your little tent and you mope all the time. But when the sun comes out, you do crazy things like, let's get in a boat and travel out in the open sea. 50% of the Vikings never came back. Yeah. So, I mean, there could be something to it. These are remarkable, and they have a shallow draft, so you could go, not just to the open sea, up the river. Why do you want to go up the river? Well, then you can abduct all of the Britons and all the Irish people and sell them into slavery and burn down their towns and take all their stuff. That's what the Vikings did. And these are the Viking raids. They really got around, right? Not only did they raid England and Ireland and Normandy and Spain, they made it all the way to Italy, and the Swedish Vikings went down the Volga River and they founded Kiev, and they were mercenaries for the Byzantines in Constantinople. It's unbelievable, right? They really got around. And I think it was a lithium shortage that did it. And here they are, they really get around. They're all over the place. They discovered Greenland, Iceland, Greenland, and Vinland around the year 1000. Here's Iceland, right? This is a reconstruction. And have you guys been to this?
We went to the Orkney Islands and saw
Viking settlements? This is in Nova Scotia or Newfoundland. It's hard to get to, right?
We haven't been there.
We haven't been there.
Well, I want to go there sometime, and they had recovered archaeological artifacts. We think the Vikings were here, and they were there about 50 years. Why didn't they stay? Because the Skraelings got them. Who were the Skraelings? That's the Viking word for Native Americans. Yeah, they were really tough, and so the Vikings left. Right? They were there about 50 years. Climate change might have been involved in that. It was a little ice age, but they left. Now, why is Columbus credited with discovering America and not the Vikings? Because the Vikings were only here and they left. They didn't follow through. Columbus is the head of the spear, the first of thousands, millions that came over from the old world. So Columbus gets the credit for discovering America. Right here, the Viking travels. Right, they really got around. Here's the Viking voyages. Right here's this archaeological dig. They discovered this in 1961. Some people speculate they might have made it all the way down to like Long Island and Cape Cod even. Right, here's Samuel Morrison. I'll talk about him in a couple minutes. Columbus was a man with a mission. Right? As such, men are apt to be unreasonable and disagreeable to those who cannot see the mission. So sometimes people criticize Columbus because they don't agree with his mission. He was a man alone with God. He's a profoundly metaphysical person. Against human stupidity, depravity, greed, the greed of the conquistadors. We might as well talk about that for a minute. What do you call a Spanish Roman Catholic soldier who fought the Moors for 7 or 85 years? A reconquistador. Reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula. What did they do after 1492 when they defeated the Moors? They're unemployed. Well, what do you do then? Well, you go to the New World and you become a conquistador. You drop the re. And when they land here, what do they see? Moors have dark skin and dark hair. What do Native Americans look like? They have dark skin and dark hair. In other words, thank you, Jesus, for giving me a new enemy to slay. So the Native Americans were in it's the worst possible case. The Moors, right? The Moors are defeated, and now the conquistadors have a new enemy, the Native Americans. Cowardly seaman, he's against nature, and he's against the ocean sea itself. Who are these? Slavery. You have to talk about slavery for a minute. We don't like Columbus because he introduced slavery. The answer is, shut up, moron. Right? Who practices slavery, historically speaking? Everyone. You mean to say the peace-loving Native Americans practice slavery? Just a lot, right? They would like raid each other and take people in their camp and make them slaves and so on. The Chinese practice slavery. The people from India practice slavery. African practice slavery. Islam, that's the whole thing. It's a master slave religion. This is a picture of the Barbary pirates. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. So our first big engagement as a nation is Jefferson sends the Marines in, leathernecks, to fight the Barbary pirates who were abducting Europeans. We think about 1.2 million Europeans were taken slaves by the Islamic Moors and sold into slavery in the Islamic world. So slavery is like an ongoing problem by everybody. And what's the rule anyway? In Islam, you're not allowed to make a slave out of an Islamic brother. But if you're not Islamic, if you're Catholic, let's say, no problem at all. Okay? So slavery is widely practiced by everybody. Okay? Hey, I like to ask this question before. A human being working is 1/10 of a horsepower. Okay, go and dig a hole, it's 1/10 of a horsepower. How many horsepower in your car? Oh, 250 horsepower? Your car, you go and sit down and turn the key, you have 250 horses pulling you down the road, and you don't have to muck up the stalls, and you don't have to put the harnesses on them, right? Modern people, us, we have such power that it's unthinkable. Most people in most of human history, 1/10 of a horsepower. That's you working, okay? And who does the work? Do you know that you, Mrs. Isaacs here, she has the equivalent of 75 slaves waiting on her every day. Back on the floor, cook breakfast, right? You have food, you know, where do you get the food from? If you made technology disappear just like that, you'd have to replace it with 75 slaves in order for you to live the way you live. So we get all morally superior, you know. We abolished slavery. No, actually capitalism abolished slavery. Tools are substituted for human labor. What would happen if you make technology disappear tomorrow? A lot of people are really happy. We'd have, you know, everybody, oh, we got rid of all that horrible technology. Well, they'd find a way to reintroduce slavery, because somebody has to do the work, right? Amazing. Do you like horses? I do. Think about the poor horses. In New York City, they think there were about 50,000 horses like 1890s, and what do horses do? They create manure, urine. The streets in New York were absolutely filthy. They die, and they would just leave them laying in the streets. And the cruelty on these poor, beating the horses, you know, I mean, what a horrible thing. You know, we get in our car and turn the key, we have 250 horses driving us down the street. It's rather remarkable when you think about it. So Barbary pirates, right? Family, clan, tribe. Again, this is circa 1300. You could take any period of human history. These are the family, clans, and tribes that are in like the eastern part of Europe and Asia, right? So this is what North America was like. 500 nations of Indians, family, clans, and tribes. See? I think that's fascinating. This is again England around the time of Christopher Columbus, the Republic of Genoa, right? Aragon and Castile. France is not united, right? The Papal State, Italy's not united. Germany's not united. And Genoa had extensive trading routes all over the Mediterranean. So Christopher Columbus was tapped into this. So he visited England, he knew about Madeira, he traveled, so he knew what he was doing when he sailed. Sailing in the Mediterranean is different than sailing in the open sea, though. The Mediterranean, you can bump into the shore and just sort of follow that. When you're in open sea, there's no shore to bump into. So it takes a big, courageous step to go from the Mediterranean, our lake, the Romans, into the North Atlantic, which is wide open, okay? So he's a courageous person. Some people think, oh, Christopher Columbus believed the earth was flat, and he disproved that. Is that true? Well, if you read the Bible, there are 3 continents: Africa, Europe, and Asia. And then Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? So people read the Bible, there's 3 continents. They didn't know about the other 4 continents: North, South America, Antarctica, Australia. They didn't know about that. But they knew about Africa, Asia, and Europe. And they thought that there was some ocean sea around it, like the way this looks, right? So they thought that the 3 continents were surrounded by an ocean. And, oh, you might fall off the edge. So did Columbus believe that? No, he didn't believe that. And this is actually disproven by the ancient Greeks. The ancient Greeks actually knew that the earth was round, and classical scholars knew the earth was round. So this is not something that Columbus didn't discover that. Where does it come from? Washington Irving. Do we like Washington Irving? We love Washington Irving. He's from Tappan Zee Bridge, Irvington on Hudson, down there. That's his house, called Sunnyside. Go down there and visit. He writes a book in 1828, a multi-volume set on Christopher Columbus. Yeah. And to juice up the story a little, he's a good novelist. He puts in the idea that the Catholics believed the earth was flat, but Columbus, being an enlightened person, almost a Protestant, knew the earth was round, and science triumphed over the ignorant Catholics. Okay? That's Washington Irving's argument. And here is Washington Irving, great guy. He wrote Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Rip Van Winkle, and he's the first American writer to make a living as a writer. And Tales of the Alhambra, right? He wrote, Washington Irving left New York and lived in Europe for 17 years. While he was there, he learned Spanish. Why would you do that? Well, most people, if you go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Cambridge, or Oxford, we believe in a thing called the Black Legend. What does that mean? That England is good, anointed by God himself, and America is the successor of England, and all things Spanish are evil and demonic, called the Black Legend. Roman Catholicism is evil, the Pope's the Antichrist, and so why would you want to read anything that Spain had to offer? So we don't know, if you talk to most people, do you know about the history of the United States? Yeah. Do you know about the history of Mexico? Never heard of it. Do you know about South American history? They don't know anything about that, because it's the hangover from the Black Legend. So they're not worthy of even studying. Washington Irving learned Spanish, and he gets into the archives and he reads the journals of Columbus and the writings of Columbus, and he writes it in English so that we would know about Christopher Columbus. In 1828, we didn't really know a whole lot about Columbus. Nobody really, but it becomes a thing because of Washington Irving, who actually made him famous. Again, in 1892, it's the 300th or 400th anniversary of the Columbus discovering America, and they had the Columbian Worldwide Exposition in Chicago. So they built a model of the Santa Maria in Lake Michigan, and the Columbus, big revival in Columbus interest. Columbus Day comes in that area, right, during that time period. So Columbus Day wasn't something we celebrated going back to July 4th, 1776. It's a late 19th century holiday, right? Okay, so he learns Spanish, he writes a bunch of books, and we'll talk about him another day. Here's Irving's works, his volumes of Columbus. And people in the 19th century, people would read about his voyages, and through the lens of Christopher Columbus. And again, these are translated, right? Andrew Dixon White, I'll talk about him another day. He was one of the founders of Cornell University. I guess we have to look at it a while it's...
Oh,
there it is. This is a great book. You should read this book sometime. He also talks about the flat earth myth, how religious people are unscientific. He doesn't like religion. And this is Flat Earth Society, right? So this is what we knew, the 3 continents, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the center is what? Jerusalem. Okay, so Jerusalem is the center. For Columbus, Jerusalem is the center of the world. And here he is, Christopher Columbus. For some reason, it's not changing here again.
Give it a minute.
We don't have a minute.
Are you almost done?
I'm just getting to the good stuff.
Oh.
We had like a 20-minute intermission in the middle there, so. Oh, come on. There it is. Why? Okay, here we go. Why? All right, why 1491? All right, I'll talk about that. Why 1492? Why is that a big deal? 3 things happened in 1492. 1, 2, 3. The first thing that happened, the Moors are expelled from Spain. January 1st, 1492. So what does that mean? Ferdinand and Isabella get married, they unite their armies, they kick out the Moors. So after all these years, the second thing that happened, the Jews are expelled from Spain. And then the Moors are expelled from Spain. So you have 3 things that happen in 1492. And when the Jews and Moors are expelled from Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella took their money and they financed Christopher Columbus's voyage, October 12, 1492. So it's Moors defeated, Jews expelled, Columbus discovers America. So 1492 is a big year, okay? The other big year is 1453. What's that? The Turks take Constantinople, and that closes off the Silk Road. You can't get to China anymore. The second thing that happened, Johannes Gutenberg invents movable type, 3-hour lecture on that, the information age. The third thing that happened, the 100 Years' War ends. France against England. And what's the rule there? That England rules the sea, the whale, and the whale always defeats the elephant. The elephant is the land army. So we, Western people, England, we look to the ocean to make money, not the land anymore. Napoleon lost because he didn't control the ocean. Okay? So 1453, it's one of these really important years. You should memorize what happened then. Here's the Silk Road. Again, this whole complex trade network evolved over like 800 or 1,000 years, and 1453 put an end to it. So the only way to get there is to go west, which is what Columbus did. The Ottoman Turks conquer, again, this is a huge thing. It sent shockwaves throughout the world. Here's Constantinople. It was a fortress city, and Muhammad II, Turkish army, he figured out how to breach the walls, and they did. They put a chain across. Here's Muhammad II. All right. They used fired an 18-inch diameter cannonball. They had bronze cannons, and they blew the walls up. 1453 means no more castles. Castles are stupid. Field artillery will blow up the castle, so now you have to change the way warfare works. So the Turks took Constantinople because of bronze cannons. Fall of Constantinople, Christian universities closed. The works of Plato and Aristotle and other Greek scholars, they fled to the west. That's the Italian Renaissance begins then. Here's Hagia Sophia. Have you been there? Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of you. This is called Holy Wisdom Church. This was like the Vatican for Eastern Orthodox Christianity. In 1453, it became a mosque. And now it's a museum, but I think they made it into a mosque again. The current Turkish leader is a lunatic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's a mosque again.
When we saw it, it wasn't that
It was.
Still a museum, right?
It's a museum, but the mosque across the street,
But they had uncovered
The
a lot of
blue-
the original.
the Blue Moon Mosque or something like that.
Yeah, they don't like the mosaics and things, yeah. All right, so 1492, okay, we did this already. All right, Ferdinand and Isabella get married. Okay, what's the big deal there? Ferdinand is from Aragon. Isabella is from Castile. It was an arranged marriage like they do. They were actually in love with each other. They were devoted. Isabel's deeply religious, and she's from Castile. That's the bigger of the two territories. She's the one that really wore the pants in the relationship because she had the more political power and more money. Castilian is Spanish, okay? So, oh no. And now I'm getting the voiceover here. All right, so this is the St. James the Great. You were there, San Diego de Compostela. St. James is the patron saint of Spain, and it's called San Diego Matamoros. Matamoros means the Moor Slayer. So it's embedded in Spanish religion. Here they are. What's St. James doing? He's trampling over a Spanish Moor. So San Diego Compostela is the pilgrimage site, you guys. No, but I got to go to Staatsburg. My nephew, the little creep, right? Where is he now? He's in Prague or something. Yeah, he's in Prague right now with his wife and kid. You know, it's like, I get to go to Kingston.
Oh my.
No, he was in Athens. That's where he is. And I said, I'm going to the Greek diner in Poughkeepsie. And so so the Jews are expelled from Spain, Sephardic Jews, and they spread all over the world. That's just a great thing. For some reason, the voice narration kicked in here. I had to do this during COVID. All right, here, okay, this is a picture that it was 50 years after Columbus, so they think that's what he looked like. And this is, where did Columbus get his ideas from? He read Marco Polo. The book is called The Millions, The Travels of Marco Polo, and it inflamed his memory about what China was like, right? All the goods and wealth of China. So here he is. That's Columbus's book with the notes that he wrote in it. That's his handwriting. So he loved, this is the thing that like inspired him to, to get to China somehow. Motives. Again, we talked about this before. Gold, glory, gospel, geopolitics. Here, Aragon is Ferdinand's from Aragon, Castile. They get married, and that unites the army. They expel the Moors from Granada, which is the Alhambra. That little tip there, the south. That was the last toehold of Islam here they are, Ferdinand and Isabella. Right, here's Columbus lobbying for money for this thing. You think that was a hard thing to do? I think that was probably more difficult than the actual voyage, trying to get the money. It took him years. He tried to go to the Portuguese. They didn't want to do with it. He goes to Spain instead, and they agree to do it. And again, the idea to spread the gospel or Roman Catholicism to the New World, right? Because we have to counteract Islam. Remember, Ferdinand and Isabella have been fighting Islam. They don't like Islam, and they know it's militant, and so the way that you get more people on your side. Here he is again presenting, and this is the Columbian Exposition of 1892. They a bunch of commemorative stamps. So Columbus becomes a big deal in the common American mind here. And this is his brother and Columbus. These are some of his maps. The little writing that you see along the edge of Africa, these are little ports of call and places you could stop along the way. And these is what he never actually set foot in North America. So his area of it's San Salvador, Hispaniola, which is modern day Haiti and Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. And then he actually sets foot in Central America also. And he did 4 voyages. And so the Caribbean is the big thing. That's the prize, not New England. Nobody wants to know. Who cares about that? It's a sparsely inhabited region where you can't grow anything and it's cold. And here he is coming back presenting his idea. Oh, this is the story of the egg. You don't want to know that one. And here he is. This is 19th century romanticism. They make it look like, okay, everybody on the boat. And it's the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. These are tiny little boats. You'd be out of your mind. It's like maybe from here to the back wall. Yeah, sure, yeah. And they were short, relatively short, so they bobbed around like a bathtub. They weren't long to give stability, like Mrs. Isaac would be seasick the minute you look at the boat. Okay? These are the 4 voyages. The first voyage, he had 3 ships and between about 90 men. The second, he had 17 ships and 1,200 men. The second voyage was the biggie. The 6th one, he had 266 men, and the 4th voyage, he had 147 men. And so again, he's the tip of the spear. And what else about him? He's a great explorer, and he wanted to be the viceroy. Royalty, vice means in place of the king and queen of Spain. He wanted to be viceroy of the new lands, and he was a lousy administrator. And what's the problem? Who wants to go to the New World? Nobody. So, who went there? The dregs of society. I'm talking about scoundrels, lowlifes, criminals, worthless, good-for-nothing people. You know, people who live in Saugerties, Mike. You know these people, right? So in other words, they didn't send the best and the brightest to the New World. They send the mutts there. What happens when the mutts arrive in Cuba? Oh, let's rape the native women. Let's enslave the Indians. I'm not going to do any work. I'm a conquistador. I'm going to make other people work for me. All kinds of corruption and outrages and all kinds of awful stuff, and they attribute it to Columbus, right? Was he responsible? Well, I suppose he's the commanding officer of it, but the people that went were like, the dregs of society. So again, it's a worst case scenario. And were there some priests and monks and so on that went? Yeah, they're like the hardcore kind. Right? So you had like the hardcore priests and monks going, along with the dregs going. No wonder. And they regarded the Indians as like Moors. Right? So you enslave them, you kill them, whatever, The Pope issues a bull. They divide the world. The world is divided into North and South America. They go to the Spanish, and the rest of the world goes to the Portuguese. Who got the best deal? The Spanish did. But at the time, the Portuguese thought they got the best deal. Remember Vasco da Gama sails around the Cape of Good Hope and makes it to India and back. So they had a good route to the east locked in. So Columbus, the New World stuff would be like, it's kind of the leftovers, right? What language do they speak in Brazil? Why? Because the line that is called the Treaty of Tordesillas, on that side of the line is Portuguese. Everything else is Spanish. Yeah, here it is. That's the boundary marker. Kind of interesting. And there's a pope here. Bartolomeo de las Casas was a Dominican friar who traveled with Columbus, and he lived a long life. And he wrote extensively about how the conquistadors, haciendas, are abusing the Native Americans. They're enslaving the Indians. The Pope says, no, you can't slave the Indians. It goes on and on. So he is a very interesting person that presents kind of the Christian view of what was going on in the New World. And it ends up in, the British colonies. Who wants to live up here? The prime stuff is the Caribbean. Even during the Revolutionary War period, the prime stuff is the Caribbean. Where did Alexander Hamilton come from? The Caribbean, right? The sugar plantations. All right, they expelled the Moor. Oh, here are the Moor Slayer. What a great thing. Right here they are fighting 781 years of this. And surrender of Grenada, 1492. This is a huge thing in Spanish history. They finally kicked the Moors out of Spain. And there's Columbus again. Again, these Santa Maria, small ships, right? Going down the home stretch here. Oh, here. They brought dogs with them. These are like war dogs, vicious dogs. The Indians were more afraid of that than they were of the weapons and the horses even. On one of the political intrigues, one of the governors put Columbus in chains and sent him back to Spain for trial where he was vindicated. But Columbus would carry the chains around with him to show he's a martyr for the Christian faith in Spain. So they had political problems back then too. Who's this? You want to read about Columbus? This is Samuel Eliot Morison. He wrote a bunch of books, right? And I really like him a lot. He was a Harvard professor, and in World War II, he wrote the definitive history of the U.S. Navy in the South Pacific. It's a 15-volume set. I'm hoping to read this, but Mrs. Isaacs won't leave me alone, so I can't read it. She's blocking my intellectual development. I want to be able to read about the history of the U.S. Navy in World War II. So he wrote the definitive history. And what's interesting about Samuel, he's not just a stupid professor at Harvard who sits around and reads books. He has a yacht, and he goes out and he got a crew, and he recreated the route of Christopher Columbus. It was in 1937 before World War II broke out. So he sails from Spain across the Atlantic through the Caribbean, and he actually checked out where Columbus was supposedly have landed and the sea. So when he writes his Pulitzer Prize winning book, which is 1942, Admiral of the Ocean Sea, he's writing about firsthand, like he went and checked it out himself. That's good, rather than just reading other books. Go and check it out yourself. So he writes as a naval person, writing about the travels of Columbus. This is a really good book to read, okay? And here it is, Christopher Columbus. Yeah, here's the ships. So here again, labor intent. 1/10 of a horsepower is a killer concept that you always want to remember. So these sailing ships, it's human power. Does solar and wind power work? If wind power worked, then why don't we have sailing ships again? Because you have to have 200 people on the crew hoisting the canvases and so on. See? So wind power is a great thing, but it's labor intensive. You have to have all these people. You have to have crews of people. What do those big cargo containers have? Cargo ships? They have, 1,000 cargo containers on it, and they have a crew of like 25 people. And they hit buttons because it's all computerized. It's amazing. All right, Columbus, Carracks. These are, the technology enabled Columbus to do this. Right, so these are the little ships. Again, these are Mediterranean ships that they took out to the open sea. And these are his voyages. And they didn't have GPS locating, they did astrolabes. They would like do star readings to try to get their bearings. And the Santa Maria actually got shipwrecked, and they're still looking for the actual wreckage of it. We know the general location, but we can't seem to locate it. That'd be a major archaeological find. Okay, Columbia Exchange, I'm going down the home stretch, I'm almost over here. So what's the big deal about Columbus? I don't care if you like him or not. Ready? Guns, Germs, and Steel. You want to read this book. My daughter Haley's reading this book. Anybody who's graduated from college since 1995 has read this book. Right? It's one of those books that you have to know. Why is it that the Spanish came here and conquered the Aztecs instead of the Aztecs going to conquer Spain? Because of Guns, Germs, and Steel. Right? And this is his theory. I'll develop this another time. It's 14,000 miles across Eurasia, from Ireland to Japan. It's 14,000 miles from northern Canada to Tierra del Fuego, except the choke point is the Isthmus of Panama. So they didn't have a lot of movement between North and South America, which impeded their technological development. Whereas the Silk Road, Guns, Germs, and Steel move across the Silk Road, and that's why the West developed. That's his theory. These are some wild animals. What are like the big 5 domesticated animals in the Fertile Crescent? Sheep, goats, cattle, pigs, and chickens, I guess. What do you do with that? You can have a heck of a barbecue, right? So is that better than being a hunter-gatherer? Yeah, okay. So agriculture is a tremendous thing. And this shows the trade triangle. You probably learned this in 7th grade, but it's very important. It's like economic history. So Columbus made this possible. And, you ready? What's a Thanksgiving dinner anyway? Turkey. Where's turkey from? The New World. Where is corn from? Maize. That's from the New World. Where are sweet potatoes from? That's from the New World. Where are cranberries from? That's from the New World. Basically, our food palette has been impacted by contact with the New World. So beans, what's the holy trinity of Native American cuisine? Corn, squash, and beans. Okay? Well, what do you do with corn, squash, and beans? You can live on that. You don't even need to eat meat. Okay? So cocoa beans, maize, peanuts, pineapples, potatoes, pumpkins, squash, sweet potatoes, tobacco, tomatoes, and turkeys all come from the New World to the Old World. The Old World sends bananas, cattle, chicken, citrus, grapes, horses, onions, peaches, pigs, rice. So there's an exchange of what? Columbian exchange. Extremely important concept here. So do you have to like Columbus? Not really. But do you like things on either the left or the right-hand column? Well, that's because of Columbus. Very, very important. Columbian exchange. And again, okay, ready? Are the rascally Europeans who we hate, didn't they do a genocide by bringing European diseases to the poor Native Americans? The answer is, yeah, because when you have one closed culture in contact with another closed culture, you're going to have things swap, diseases swap. So they were wiped out by things like typhus, typhoid, malaria, the common cold, flu, right? European diseases that we developed immunity to because we lived with our animals in Europe. It's a long story. So were the Native Americans just helpless in this category? The answer is no. We have the gift of the red man. What's that? Tobacco. How many people have died hacking up their lungs from emphysema and cancer thanks to the gift of the red man? I think it's pretty even, right? Right? And what else did they get? The Spanish called it the French disease. The French called it the Spanish disease. What is it? It's syphilis. And it appears in 1493 when the boys got back from the New World. And it spread like wildfire. So the germs went both ways. And that's what happens when cultures meet. Indians, unfortunately, were on the receiving end of the brunt of it because they lived as hunter-gatherers in small, isolated, 50 people in an area of 100 square miles. We live in cities. So the people that live in cities that aren't dead are ones that have immunity to these diseases. So see how that works? Okay? It wasn't an intentional thing, let's kill the Indians by giving them our diseases. Again, it's the tip of the iceberg. These are explorations by Europeans, especially the Portuguese. Here they are in meeting the Indians. All right, Samuel L. Morrison, great guy, great historian, read his book. I probably better end here. Anyway, any quick questions? I mean, I tried to keep this to an hour, but it didn't quite work out. So, any questions? Did you find this to be instructive?
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before they brought tobacco over,
Yeah.
did they smoke anything in Europe?
No, tobacco was the gift of the red man, and tobacco and sugar are the two things that made the Caribbean, like Virginia, like that's why you need slaves.